Welcome to the MimeCast. I am Michael Gene Sullivan, and this is the MimeCast is a chance for Mime Troupe audience members and pretty much everyone to kind of get to know people, Mime Troupe veterans, Mime Troupe collective members, designers, directors, actors, writers, interns, workshoppers, everybody who's been around the Mime Troupe. This is a chance for everyone else to kind of get to know us a little bit better outside of our Mime Troupe lives. And today, I am super happy to have a friend of mine, a Mime Troupe veteran, ex-collective member, and all-around neat person, Lizzie Calogero.
Hello!
Hi!
Welcome to my bedroom.
Ooh. So, because this is a long-form interview about you, we will start with the obvious question.
Right.
Where were you born?
I was born in Tehran, Iran.
Really?
Did you see that coming?
No, did not see that coming at all.
So I was born in Tehran. My dad, who was grew up very blue collar foundryman working in the steel industry. I don't know, it was like he got sort of like zapped by lightning at some point and was like, I'm going to make a new life for myself. And he, God, I'm taking you back a little further than where I was born, but basically he signed up with Britain's version of the Peace Corps, which is called Voluntary Services Overseas.
That's a much cooler name.
It is cool, and it's also like they don't tend to just take people out of high school or whatever. Like you have to have a trade, you have to be able to do something, and so he ended up in India building. I think he was building a hospital or something, and he met my mum, who was teaching music. Who's American? Huh?
Oh,
no, shoot! I don't know how they hooked up. I don't ask too many questions about that. I don't want that image. Don't want the. Oh, how sweet! They fell in love.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he'd already had a bit of a history of working abroad, and I guess right around the time they were getting married, the Shah was in power in Iran. And he was very interested in like westernizing things and being like, we're going to train the Western way. And we're going to, we may have a great deal of pride in our Persian background, but we are going to, we're a modern country. And so he brought a bunch of people in to sort of, modernize Iran. And of course, so my dad was one of them. So my dad he saw an ad in the paper or something and went up for it. And so he went into because steel was a big deal in Tehran. And so he went in to teach the Iranians the Western way of doing things, I guess. And he said they were very, very polite. And they were like, oh, thanks. Yeah, great. And then completely ignored him. So he had no idea where he stood with them, but he made lifelong friends. And that's where I was born, Tehran, until I was 3.
So did your parents did they get married in India and then go to Iran?
No, they got married in America because my mom's American. So they had this wild romance where they wrote letters to each other. My mom, they'd write to each other every day. My mom started off writing to my dad and one other guy that she'd met at the same time. Then she kind of just stopped writing to that other guy. And then my mother went to visit dad in Sheffield, where he's from. And within 24 hours of her plane hitting the ground. And then, landing, not like hitting, and then, so then, they had like a week together and then they went, because mom was somewhere else, Egypt or something at that point, and they kept writing to each other. And mom said when she went to meet dad at the airport to marry him back in Stony Point, New York, she wasn't sure she'd recognize him because she just didn't. She had a few photos, but it was like we didn't have this. They hadn't seen each other that much. They hadn't spent that much actual physical time, but they'd been writing these long letters in which they kind of knew everything about each other. They knew each other's innermost thoughts about everything. So they're still married. So that worked.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Wow.
So that's the back.
So then they finish. They get to United States, marry, and then move back to Iran to continue his job.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's complicated. They actually, the wedding part was just in America for my mom's family kind of thing.
Oh.
And then they started off life in England, in Bolton. And it sounded pretty dreary and mundane kind of life. So I think it was a good thing when they moved to Iran for a few years. And then pretty much after, when I was 3, spent a little time in Oxford, but we lived in Bedfordshire. You know, that's where I grew up, little village in rural England. Yeah, and then
so the whole Iran thing before your memory.
Kind of, you know, I can.
Yeah, I would think so.
I have images. I have like little images. I remember the fountain that was in our front courtyard. I remember a hike in the mountains. The Alborz Mountains there are just stunning. I sort of vaguely remember something about a guy giving me an orange. You know, like those kind of very early memories. Yeah.
Those things that only happen in Iran.
Only ever happened in Iran. Couldn't have been anywhere else.
Yeah.
But there is a feeling like when I hear the language, I feel like, God damn it, if I could just focus hard enough, I should be able to understand what they're saying.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's how I am around the piano. I cannot play the piano, but I always feel like if I could just focus on it enough, in my dreams I can play the piano.
Yeah.
And I sit down at the piano, I'm like, if I could just capture that, I should be able to do this.
Yeah. Like because you knew at some point and have forgotten.
Yeah. So you still have the music of that language. You see how I tie these things together?
I do. I love it.
Yeah. So you're in Bedfordshire as a small child.
I really hope you want to go this granular, because my God, you just asked me where I was born, and here we are 20 minutes later.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you're a wee tot.
I'm a wee tot.
Bedfordshire. And where in the island is that?
So if you drive north out of London for about an hour.
Oh, okay.
That's where it is.
So it's kind of
enough that you could live there and work in London, which
in the city. So it's kind of a suburb, but it's its own village. I'm trying to think. It's like if you like Hercules, it's like out like you know, Alamo and like that's near Walnut Creek. Oh, okay.
You wouldn't really call it a suburb of San Francisco, or even just a little bit further out, you know, Rodeo is like, I don't know. It's
It's its own town.
It's its own. It's very much, and it's its own kind of culture, and it's like a bunch of little villages where, like, I think when we first moved to Hendo, like 1,000 people lived there, and then but yeah.
So growing up there, how was it for your as far as you recall, for your mother being the American? Were there other Americans in town?
No, there weren't. And I think, especially when I was little, I think she had a hard time. I think she was not. My mom is very sociable and very friendly, and she bakes brownies for everybody, and she's all about community. And she dug in as soon as she got there. She joined the babysitting circles, and like she really like tried to get stuck into the community life. But I think at first it was hard for her because there was a lot of distrust, and people don't like Americans. There's a sort of a sense that Americans are phony and just plastic, and you know, all about big cars and like the Texas thing, and like, you know, it's like it's, the stories we hear are not the stories of thoughtful Americans trying to make, you know, that it's just a snake handlers, basically, you know. That's not,
United States of America, a nation of snake
handlers.
Well, you have to have a big car if you're going to be handling snakes, because the snakes need their own space.
They do. You don't want a claustrophobic snake.
It wouldn't work for me, but you know, they need their own seats. They're very
tiny snakes, very tiny snakes.
That's true. I could have small snakes. They're easier to handle. You can handle a whole bunch of them at once, cut to the chase, and be done. 50 snakes! There! Hallelujah.
Okay.
So anyway. So you're a little kid, and you're in Bedfordshire.
Yeah.
And so, now, so since you were there, did you get any stress having been born somewhere else?
No, that wasn't. that wasn't such an issue. I got to tell you this great story. I'm trying to remember it right because it's so funny. It tells you a little bit about what it was like there. My mum was saying, so my parents met in India. They lived in Iran. They have this, like, my mom lived in Saudi Arabia and Egypt and all these places, like, so. She said at like one of the PTA meetings, she was chatting, I think, with the headmistress of my lower school. And she said to her, it's great here. It's just very monocultural. And the headmistress said, no, that's not true at all. We have one Italian family and now we have an American family. So basically, I was of color. Because my mom was American. That was the closest we got. That was absolutely good.
They're like, oh, it's International Week.
Yeah. Woo.
Yeah.
So it was tough. It was tough to be in a place. It was very parochial at that point. I feel like when I go back more recently, because it's easier to travel and because a lot of people are now working in London and living up there, it's more of a bedroom community and stuff. But like, there's more of a sense of the world. I think the internet's had more, but like there were people who never left the county when I was living there, and it was just so my stress was just how small-minded the place was and how the social norms were. Nobody was kind of looking above and thinking about anything bigger, and so I felt like
weird.
It was really weird, and I feel like my best time living there was when I was in my single digits.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had a great time as a little kid there because you could just go, you could just roam, you could climb trees, you could, you could tromp through people's fields and just try and be careful, but it was like very bucolic. And it was when I started getting a little older and wanting more and wanting to learn things and being curious about the world. There's a certain, culturally, there was a thing of like, well, don't get too curious. Or when I started getting interested in theater, there was this thing like, well, remember us when you're famous. Not like, you're going to be famous and like, we're going to be so proud of you. It's just like, you're going to, well, I guess you've already got an attitude about, it's like.
Well, it seems like, like the tension would be weird. It'd be so opposite. Like most people are like, they're trapped in their home and there's a very insular home life. And then you go out into the world, into your community, and there's a diversity. But for you, it would be the community is very insular, and you go home and your parents are talking about India and Saudi Arabia and the United States and all of this stuff.
Rugs from Iran all over the furniture and all this amazing, like, huge brass carving of things from, different places. And then their friends would come through. Oh my God, here comes Margot Lydon, who's just fresh from Ghana, and like on all these like great places. My mom was friends with this.
Living in the TARDIS.
Yeah, it was a little bit. And
there's the world, and then there's inside this thing, which is so much bigger.
Right. I felt for a while like, what is wrong with me? I'm supposed to be wanting to get away from my parents. But like looking at the world around, I was like, really? I'm going to break out of this home and go to like sit in the graveyard of the church smoking. And like, what are we going to talk about? Like, so it took me a little while to kind of fall in love with my fellow humans, and feel like people in general, are interesting and cool. And like you want to, it was, I think I grew up with a bit of a chip on my shoulder about like, society or whatever. I don't know.
Your people, yes. So as a kid, having friends, how was that? I mean, was like you were just saying, so it sounds like your age mates are the sitting in the churchyard smoking people.
Right. Sniffing glue.
Smoking people, because that takes a lot of time.
Sniffing glue was big. That was the big thing. Glue sniffing. I was like,
that is such a weird thing to me. I visited England and Ireland, and they said that these kids with their glue sniffing, that it was huffing was such a big deal.
Right. Yeah. So that was what was on offer. until I got, until I got a little bit older. I had like one or two really close friends at all times. So I had like a couple of my people who were really good friends. And in high school, I found high school very stressful because I really wanted to do well and I wanted to please people. And so I lived in this constant kind of fear that I was disappointing everybody around me, and that if I just worked a little bit harder, that everybody would like me. And people did like me, but I was just always like, I could lose that at any moment. So I nearly gave myself a nervous breakdown there. But I had like, my drama teacher was amazing, and like my two best friends who both were visual artists and very driven, and they're both gone on to like, my best friend Carol from when I was tiny, it's just amazing. She wanted to be an artist and I wanted to be an actress, and we're both doing what we set out to do, and it's incredible. She makes a living painting beautiful paintings of people's prized livestock.
Really?
She paints people's cows, because the cows can't live forever and you get attached and they're wonderful, and she paints these gorgeous photos. She sent me a Christmas card that she'd painted that was this cow in the snow at night, and it was lovely. It was really lovely.
Sounds so romantic.
Yeah, she made it romantic. I don't know how, but yeah. So like my close cadre of friends were good. I was like in a constant, I was never going to be cool. That was clear. I was not going to be a cool kid ever. So I gave that up. I didn't really get a boyfriend until I came to the States, so because the accent,
Well, the thing with being cool is what I always tell my students is that you can't be cool. You can't make yourself cool. It's other people consider you cool.
That's right.
And you might go through your life thinking you're never cool, but other people are like, she's so cool. So
I hear that from people now, and I'm like, you're wrong. Don't you know? Let me take you back to Henlo, and we'll walk there, and we'll find you can. They'll set you right.
Nope. You're cool. You just don't. You whether you accept it or not.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Right. It's that other people. I'm sure there are people in that town who are like, whatever happened to that Lizzie girl?
Yeah.
And she's in the United States. I know I'm being too Irish.
That's Irish.
But
I think we had a couple. There was at least one Irishman in her.
That's more. Everything outside of London to me immediately becomes Ireland when I'm doing it.
It's a very seductive accent. That once you've been doing it for a bit, it just
everything just slides right into it. But anyway, so I want to get back to you. So you keep saying then when you started acting. So when did you start kind of? Were you an acty kid?
So the first, I'll tell you that again, more granular than you want, but I love it. So like my first like inkling of what was to come was when I was 6 and we visited my grandparents who lived in upstate New York, and they took us into the big city and we went to see The King and I with Yul Brynner.
Oh my God! How old were you?
I was 6, and I was just like, like drinking from the fire hydrant, and there's this one point where all the little Siamese kids come on in pairs, and I was like I could do that. So that was the first thing. It was like, yeah, I could do that. Doesn't look that hard. I could do that. But then I just like, I feel like the school plays, I always got cast. I got cast well in the school plays. I got big roles, and people were like, because I don't know why, but I didn't get stage fright. I was just like, yes, right from the beginning. And that was one of the only times in the school year that people at school saw me being capable and confident and handling stuff. And they were just like, wow, I couldn't, I'm terrified to go up there. How is she doing it? And so that, I think, really, I was like, well, I seem to be able to do this. And it just, snowballed as it does.
Yeah. So, in the winter.
Yeah.
So when did you do your first play at school? How old were you?
Well, we had them right from the beginning. So my mom, like, I think the first one, oh my God. I think it was a Harvest Festival play. And we were like, it was like, because in England, what grows, apples, potatoes, not very much. And so it was all about like food from all around the world. Look at where all our food comes from. And they dressed me up like a Spanish dancing lady, and I had oranges. And I went out and I said, "These oranges come from Spain." And then I did a little dance in a circle.
Well, and that was your audition piece until you.
Another key moment at that very young age was the Christmas pageant.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I want to be a wise man. I want to be one of the three kings. And they were short on people, on boys. So I got to be, and I was just like, fuck yes. Because otherwise.
Was that your line, by the way?
Fuck yes. Yes. I don't remember the line for that one. Could have been, for all I know. But no, because I might have had a moustache actually. Maybe I just added the moustache in my memory because it makes it funnier. But yeah, but like, because otherwise you could be Mary or nothing really, a shepherdess maybe, an angel, and none of those appealed to me. But I did at that point. That was the point at which I really wanted to be a boy. And if they'd had like, I would have definitely been like, we did have gender pronoun conversations. Like I was like, you have to call me he. I'm going to be Edward from now on. That is what I want. And so yeah. Those years I was definitely, yeah.
You were Edward.
I was Edward, and I was a boy as far as I was concerned. I had short hair. Everyone thought I was a boy. It worked great. And then middle school happened, and I was just like, you know what? There's lots of different ways to be a girl, and this is how I'm going to be a girl. So.
Well, I guess, yeah, that's part of that. If you're taught that, you know, there's boys and girls, and then there's not really much in between. And boys act like this, girls act like that.
Right.
And so whatever was it the Kinsey report? Where it's like there's a spectrum.
Right.
You know, the first time to really say, no, there's a full spectrum, and people are all along this spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember when I was a kid and there were the girls that were just considered tomboys.
Right.
Which were the fun ones.
Right.
You know? Because these are the ones, the girls you could play with.
Right.
And do stuff. And then you'd see the other girls, and I felt like kind of like they were all wannabe tomboys. Because they would be on the side, but they would be forced to wear dresses, and they were, I mean, not all of them, some of them loved it, but some of them were just like, they so wanted to come and play with us.
And there's just all this kind of these mannerisms that you have to adopt as like an 8-year-old girl. I just might remember like we'd be crayoning or chalk or whatever, and like the guys would be like, there, I did it, you know, this is my house or whatever. And all the girls would have to do this dance, this little dance of like, mine's not very good. I think yours is better than mine. And I was just like, I have no time for this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that deferential, I remember, you know, Valina would talk about that a little bit. Being taught, you know, how you have to laugh at the boy. She never did it, but you have to laugh at the boys' jokes.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Or they'll take it badly because we're so fragile.
Right,
you know?
Right. Hurt their feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So yeah, bucolic early years, and then teenage life was harder. I was stressed. I was kind of, I was stressed about work. I was trying to, don't know what I wasn't trying to fit in because I thought that was a lost cause, but just get through. And I feel like I was in a really bad year at school. Like everybody else in the year was like dossing around and just farting about and being funny and not do it. And so the teachers were constantly like, you have got to work harder than this. Like you are fucking up. They didn't say that, but like, you know, you're a mess. You should be ashamed of yourselves. And I was just like, I was the only one listening, right? So I was the only one they didn't need to say that to, but I really took all that stuff on. So I didn't love it. I didn't love that as I got older, like, and got really into theater, like there were great facilities at my school, but nobody was taking it. So I had to recruit 3 of my friends to take theater so that I could take theater. And it was fine, but kind of, it was the first year of the A-level theater program. And so future years were great or better. And they're actually from my high school. See, this is no good of a brag, but like some guy you'd recognize from TV and movies went to my high school like years after I left there. So it could have been good, but it didn't. It was a struggle. It was a real struggle.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So they had the facilities, they had a little theater and everything.
Yeah.
Did they have a drama teacher?
Well, they did when I first went there, and then he bogged off. I don't know. He left like after my first year. Like I took one class from him, and he was just always in the staff room smoking. He'd give us something to do, and then he'd just wander off. So his heart wasn't in it. And then the woman who became my drama teacher was originally an English teacher, and for the first year of our A level, she would just like once a week she'd just drive us down to London, and so once or twice sometimes. So I just saw a ton of theater, and that was what she couldn't have done better than that. Like we just saw a ton of really great theater.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That's that's the benefit of being an hour away.
And a small class. Like if we'd been more than 4 of us, she couldn't have put us in a car. So.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It worked great.
Oh, that's neat.
Yep.
So you were continuing to do shows. Was there a particular thing? What was it that was working for you with theater? Was it the intensity? Was it like some people I've talked to, it's been where they could express themselves, obviously.
Yeah.
So some other people, it was like the friendships. Some people felt like there was something that they wanted to do, wanted to say or talk about. Some people just liked being in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
So what was it for you?
Yeah, part of it was just a sense of competence. Like I read well. I handle language pretty well, and it was a very public place to show that. So it was very clear. Like, whereas, I don't know if you're good at making buildings out of matchsticks or something. It's like not that many people get to see that. So it was very clear. It felt easy. That was one thing. It felt easy. There was a kind of a power in it that something to do with power and permission and being able to like get up on stage and be like, well, I would never say this, but the character's saying it, so here we go, like. So for somebody who was like constantly feeling like I had to ask for permission to do things, getting up on stage like just cleared all of that out. And when it worked well, and this started happening more as I joined Bedfordshire Youth Theatre, which was a really actually very good institution, and is feeling that connection, being, from somebody who has socially awkward and like never knew how to keep a conversation running and, was always anxious. What if I get stuck alone with somebody and have to talk to them for 5 minutes, like just having some of it scripted, and it just felt comfortable, and then actually really feeling connection with people and being able to really connect and feel part of a group and feeling accepted and people excited to see me, and that stuff. That was
that's true.
Yeah, it was great.
So Bedfordshire Youth Theatre. How old were you and how did you get in? Did you have to audition, or was it just like, please, more kids?
Yeah, I had to audition, which is funny. I don't remember my audition. I just remember being terrified. I don't remember what I did, but I had to audition, and my two of my friends from the drama group, from my A-level drama class, also auditioned with me, and they also got in. The other one, the fourth member, I think her parents were like, no, because she's Mormon, and so there was just like, yeah, she's Indian. Her father is Indian, and her mother's English, and they're like devout Mormons. So wow. So that was that, and I got my first role. My first role in joining this, like, what felt like incredibly sexy, cool group of people was Puck. And I was just like, holy shit, like straight in, like, so yeah, it was great. And we went to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and I got a good review from a paper in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And
how old were you?
Like 16. I think I was 17 by the time we went to Edinburgh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So what was that like? I mean, I guess you'd already been going down to London and seeing a lot of shows.
Yeah.
So going to Edinburgh and there's a lot of shows.
Yeah.
but having an audience, the difference between having the audience in your town, where
Yeah.
you might know a lot of people, to going somewhere where you know no one in the audience.
Yeah, but the average, this is what they told us back then anyway, the average audience size at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival is 6 people.
God. Okay.
So, and they prepared us for that. They were like, this is really great. It is going to be cool. And yet, like, don't expect like these huge crowds. So, yeah. Yeah, it's because like.
Did you get more than 6 people?
I think we got more than 6. Yeah.
Yes.
But like 12. Like, yeah. It was tiny. Like that show, for me, the most memorable performance we did of that show was in the garden of a vicar on Midsummer Night.
Ooh.
As the sun, and our final, my closing monologue was as the sun had pretty much was going down, and it was twilight, and you could see all these like daddy long legs and like dragonflies zipping between them. Then it was just like Wow. So that was the performance of that show that I was like, this is my life.
Yeah, it's
I'm
all
gonna make
just like that.
money from now on. I'm going to live in a bedsit garret.
So how are your parents with all of this? They've traveled around and been very adventurous. Was there any like, oh goodness, she's going down the wrong path with this theater thing? Were they trying to put you into being a lawyer or anything?
Yeah, no, they were always like, follow your bliss. They did a little bit at the beginning of like, 95% of all actors are out of work at any given time. And I was like, I don't care.
Okay, so you're in the Bedfordshire Youth Theatre and you've done stuff. And so when you went, when you matriculated.
Yes.
I'm gonna get too graphic, but while you're there matriculating with yourself, what happened when you went to university?
Yeah.
Or did you go to university?
Yeah, I did. There was a momentary question of like, should I just go straight to drama school and not deal? But then there was like, well, 95% unemployment. I might want to be able to get a real job alongside of other things, So
what did you I don't know how in like here in the States you major in something. Do you major?
Yeah, even more so in England. You just use there's very few or at least when I was there are very few places where you have like a general education. Like you pick your subject and go for it, and I guess you can jack it in and change, but I studied, and I did a double major, so I did English and theatre studies, and actually I got better theatre from the English department than the theatre studies department. I felt I felt like in terms of what I was looking for, and it was all academic. There was no acting lessons.
Oh.
But there was there was some really strong drama clubs, so I was always in rehearsal or performing something while I was there. But yeah, there's some interesting history of theater stuff that I learned. I took a really great political theater in Germany, in Scandinavia, in the early 20th century course. Fascinating stuff that like I'm still interested in. But in terms of like character analysis and stuff like that, the English department was great. We had this woman, Carol Rutter, who is from California, and she is big into the feminist takes on Shakespeare. So there's a lot of text analysis and a lot of like, let's look at the language here. How do you think how does this language suggest they are physically reacting to each other? What do we learn from that? Like reading the stage directions in the text and things like that. That has been really useful for me. A lot of that. Yeah.
So were you doing in the academic side and the drama side, were you doing a lot of shows? And what were so our image is that they're constantly doing either Shakespeare or Ackburn or something. So what did you guys do?
That's a very good point. Yeah, we did. I did a fair amount of Shakespeare. We did some great like little small show, you know, intimate in the round kind of small black box Shakespeare's a really great Taming of the Shrew that I did crew on, that I wasn't in, but I ran a sound for. That was really cool. And I was Viola in Twelfth Night, which was fun. But then we did, and there was, I'm trying to think back now. Yeah, there was we did some Michael Frayn plays. We did we did this sprawling epic, you know, Mervyn Peake, you know, Titus Groan.
Oh yeah.
We did like this 3-hour Titus Groan with a cast of like 30 people, and it was like my parents still talk about it in terms of like, that was interesting, you know, like we love you.
We'll support you in your choice.
So there was the big club that did like Amadeus. We did Amadeus, and then there were like the smaller, more kind of political ones who did plays about rape, stuff like that.
The gritty stuff.
Yeah.
And so through this, like one person I was talking to, they were like, their parents did not see them in a show until they'd been a professional for like 10 years. Because didn't approve.
Right, totally the opposite. My parents saw everything I did, and because we'd rehearse all semester, and then we'd do 4 performances of the show, and you're done. And they would see like 2 or 3 performances of the show. Like,
wow.
They're very sweet.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that, you know, because it is that question of, are you going to, like you were saying, you know, most the parents are going to remind you that the odds are you're going to starve to death a heroin addict in a garret somewhere.
Statistically,
you know, and be
it's
eaten
likely,
by rats.
right?
Yeah, just saying. Just them's the odds. You know,
eaten by heroin addict rats.
Yeah, if we had to bet on your life and you making it, we're not going to.
Right.
Because we don't want to lose the money. Because we have to retire. So that's love, is what it is.
It's love.
So your parents were super supportive.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah, very lucky.
And so when you leave the university.
Yeah.
When you're away. Now, what did you think? Were you like, okay, this is my chance, I'm going to London, or what?
So this is now sad music starts.
Oh.
Because I thought
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
My plan was 3 years of university and then a 1-year postgraduate course at a drama school in London, and then a wonderful acting career in England. But I didn't get into any of them. So I went for, and I was at that point, I guess, a little bit cocky, and I applied to 5 drama schools my first year. I knew nothing about how to put together a monologue. I found it I had no idea how to audition. I'd had no formal training of any kind.
Oh, they didn't teach audition in school?
No, because it was academic. They were teaching us the theory of theater and the history of theater, but they were kind of training us up to be maybe theater teachers. Yeah. Like I don't. So I got a little side coaching. I told you about Carol Rutter, the Californian. Yeah. She's married to Barry Rutter, who's an RSC actor, and he gave me a monologue and coached me a little bit. But it was like, I'd have to look it up. It was Greek. It was from one of the Greeks, and it was not an easy or obvious monologue choice. It was a list. It was a list of like, here, I've been to all these places and it's led me to this moment, which is great. But it was like not hard to, anyway, so I'm not going to blame him, because I also like.
Despite the fact that it's clearly his fault.
Yeah, clearly I could have been, I would have been frickin' who by now?
Yeah.
Emma
Dame
Thompson.
Elizabeth.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
But so I didn't do great. And it was intimidating. It was a very big jump to be walking into, I did a one audition that was like a full day thing at this one theater school, and they were like, we're really interested in you, but we think you need a bit more experience. Come back next year. And then the next year they weren't even that interested, you know. So, but I was also like, how am I supposed to get experience? So I decided to take a year out, go back and audition again. But first of all, I was going to go live with my uncle and aunt in Boston. And I wrote to like 100 theaters in and around the Boston area and said, I'm coming from England. I just graduated with honors from Warwick University, and I'm interested in finding out about American theater. And I wonder if I could buy you a cup of coffee or lunch or something. And I ended up with a handful of internships and an ASM job, and I stage managed a show. And so I did a bunch of like backstage crew stuff. It was great, although stage managing was incredibly stressful.
Yes, it is.
Because like you're supposed to practice a bit before you take that. Or like they should never have given me that job. Like you don't give like a. She was just like, I've got a good feeling, and she was Irish. I've got a good feeling about you.
Yes.
But don't tell our director that you've never stage managed before, because the last time I did this, it went very badly wrong. So just tell her you've done it before. And so it was terrifying, and it went really well. I did a great job.
Did you consider like, hey, well, maybe I'll stage manage?
No, I was like, get me on the stage. It's torture to sit here watching all these people. The other thing that I learned doing that was, so I worked for the public theater, and I ASM'd for them, and I think I ran sound on a couple of shows, and watching they did a performance of John Robin Bates' Substance of Fire. And that show was very interesting because there are a couple actors in there that I really admired, and I loved watching them every night. And I felt like I learned stuff. And then there were a couple of guys that I was just like, how did this guy get cast? Kind of, just like it didn't resonate with me what they were doing. And the ones I didn't like were teaching at drama schools, teaching acting.
Yeah.
And the ones that I thought were really good, like one of them was a landscape gardener in his, like for his stage job. And like, so they were like working people who also acted. And then it got me into this thing thinking, if I do go back to England, I go to drama school, what if I get one of these guys for my teacher? I don't like what he's doing. How would I learn from somebody? How do I know? You don't really get to screen your teachers. You get who they give you.
Yeah.
And what do I want to learn from drama school? Why am I going to drama school? What is it that I'm hoping they'll teach me? And in the meantime, people just figured because I was English that I had been trained at RADA or something, and people seemed willing to hire me with no training. So I thought, you know what, let's just give it a few years and let's just go after some work. And in a few years, it'll become clear why I need to go to drama school. And then I'll go back with that in mind, and I'll really make the best use of my drama school time. And I just kept working, and I never got the money to go back. And so here we are.
You're working, so you're living with your aunt and uncle in Boston.
Yes.
And working around at the theaters. And there are some big theaters there.
There are some big theaters, and there's some very different kinds. Beverly North Shore Music Theater is like a big going concern out in the forest. Like it's like an hour's train ride out of Boston, and I interned for them and worked my ass off. And I knew right away, I was like, I'm not going to like this, because the guy who interviewed me was like, yeah, we put a lot of product on the stage. I was just like, we are not going to be friends, you and I.
Yes, this is not theater. This is a shovel load of product.
I'm going to shovel a lot of product on the stage. So, wow. And that was pretty much what I still learned a bunch. Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time.
So how long were you in Boston?
Do you know, as I'm talking about it, I feel like I'm talking about a period of years, but it was 9 months. I was just there for 9 months. And while I was there, one of the theater companies I wrote to was this little theater and education that they would get up super early and drive to schools and do shows about recycling. And I fell in love with their artistic director, who was from San Francisco.
Who?
Jordan Weiner. Mr. Weiner of Berkeley High Drama Department fame. Yeah, he was a wonderful first boyfriend, actually. He was fantastic. So, yeah, he was coming. The first thing I found out about him before I even fell in love with him was like, well, I'm moving back to San Francisco. That's where my family are. And so, as time but there were months before that happened. So we got together, and then I came out here with him, and he introduced me to Sean San Jose and, Fifth Floor. Remember Fifth Floor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. I helped. I did some box office for this. So he introduced me to a ton of people. And
you've never been to San Francisco or the Bay Area before.
I would never. This is way further out than I would have imagined. My mom's family is mostly on the East Coast. I have one uncle in Walnut Creek, but I probably wouldn't have come out this far if it hadn't been.
And your parents, still back in Bedfordshire at this point, they're still thinking. Did they think, oh well, like you were saying, you're going to come back and?
My mom
go back to school.
She always knew I wasn't coming back.
Really?
Mom says she was just like, when we said goodbye to you that time, I said she's never coming back. And my dad, I think, for a long time thought I was coming back and kept being like, well, your mother's cooking this wonderful thing tonight. Well, if you were here, you'd be having it, I was like...
Trying to tempt you home with toast.
Yes.
So were you in the school tour company?
No, I just observed. I hung out and I observed. I was in later. He did not with that company, but he sort of like self-produced a series, like 3 short plays that were like adaptations of American short stories. Flannery O'Connor one and something else, a couple. And he also like did his own Belle of Amherst one woman Emily Dickinson show, but which he wrote for me, and he called it The Bull of Amherst. So that it was like much more like some of her more aggressive poetry and like it was pretty, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just going to be the Belle of Amherst, only you're dressed as a bull, which I would find hilarious.
I moo all of
the whole set is just a china shop. And you're just trying, and everyone's I'm sorry.
Brilliant.
Back to poetry. So anyway, okay, so you guys become a couple.
We became a couple.
There, and then you moved back here.
I moved out here with him. We lived in his father's, a room in his father's house with his stepmom for a while, and then we lived in Bernal Heights.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it was for me, it was a bigger culture shock coming here than it was moving to Boston from England.
Oh, why?
So, I mean, I guess I had been to Boston before, but Boston felt much more European to me. And then I came out here and I'm like, what the hell is horchata? This is a completely different country.
Yeah. But San Francisco is where Mexico meets China, pretty much.
And that's in some ways, if someone had told me that before I came out here, I'd have been much better prepared for it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're meeting people like Sean and different folks in the Bay Area.
Yeah. He also, I think, one of my early experiences was Jordan was the first person to bring me to see the San Francisco Mime Troupe.
Ooh, I've heard of that.
And I think you can tell me, I don't remember a great deal, but I do remember Bob Ernst, whom I believe was stepping in for Ed Holmes.
Right.
Doing the homosexual bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I remember when that happened. Ed used to always have to take off. He would say he was taking off Bob Dylan's birthday and Burning Man. And so there are a few years there where we get to this point in the summer and somebody had to come in to step in for Ed because he's going off to do Burning Man. I can't remember which show that was. Shoot. Was it City First, the Coast City Confidential?
Could have been.
Might have been.
Yeah. So but he was just like, okay, you got to meet San Francisco. You're going to have a beef tongue burrito, and you're going to see the San Francisco Mime Troupe. It was like,
yeah. Okay.
So then I got a great little day job working for the library up on Bernal Hill, and I just, a fabulous neighborhood and really wonderful. And then right before Jordan dumped me, actually, I guess we could go. You don't need to go into that so much. It's not that interesting, but that was my first relationship, and they don't last, So, but as things were going south with Jordan, I got hired at the Magic, and it was the biggest. I'd done an antenna theater gig. I'd done some smaller gigs, but my first big role in San Francisco was Topographical Eden, directed by Jane Wenger, and with Bridget Mullins wrote it, and Jerry Lynn Cohen was in it.
Oh, really?
And so that was my first big break. And so, but people cast months ahead, so if I hadn't had that, I probably would have just gone home back to England.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah,
because if you're here and you're staying,
and all my friends, all my friends I'd met through him. I didn't have friends that were just mine, I didn't, and that was part of the problem. Was I was just following him around a lot, and I think he got tired of that, like you do. So
like you do. Did he stay in the area, or did he?
Yeah. He stayed in the area, and he met someone else and started a family pretty soon after that, and then ended up teaching drama at Berkeley High.
Oh.
And was one of the only teachers to give my daughter anything other than a failing grade on her 9th grade. Yeah. So I remember when I found out he was going to be teaching her, I wrote to him and I was like, whatever happens with Sophia, I just want you to know I respect you and I like you. And that's not that's not because she shreds teachers. She was horrible to teachers. So. And he liked her a lot. He actually got her to engage a lot more than anybody else did.
Oh, cool.
So, yep.
So when you had to, because I was going to ask that moment when it's, do you just move back to Boston? Do you move back to England?
Right.
And you decide to stay here because you got this gig at the Magic at the right time.
Right. Just at the right time. And by the time that show had played out, I had a fabulous life here, and there was no way I was moving. I had all these great friends. I loved it. I was over Jordan for the most part.
That sounds so biblical.
Yes, right.
So, were you living in the city, or had you moved out of the city?
No, I was living. I moved back in at his dad's house because his dad had left his stepmother. So I lived in my ex-boyfriend's stepmother's basement.
For how long?
Oh, a long time. Because then when I met Pietro, my current husband, he lived in Rockridge, and I just figured I'd move in with them. But then his landlords were like, we're upgrading, everybody leave. And so Pietro moved in with me at Linda's house. So
wow.
For a while and then we got a place south of Market after a while. But yeah, that was.
That's interesting.
Yes.
It's like I'm living with my ex-boyfriend's father's
ex-wife
basement with my current boyfriend.
Yeah.
That's how romantic.
I like how complicated and messy.
Really, you couldn't chart that out easily.
Right.
So you were still doing shows here. Was there any now, was there, some people, it's like they end up focusing on stuff. Like I was talking to one actor who said that they ended up doing children's theater for 2 years. Now somebody else, like Ugo, did Kaiser Permanente for 10 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I did Body Wise, and Valina did it. We both did it for 1 semester.
Right.
We did it for 10 years.
That's like a full-time job, isn't it?
It is. It's very hard to do other shows.
Right.
Like Monty Ladd did it. She did daytime and she did night. It's really hard to do both.
Right.
So was there, but you also learned a lot. Or some people that focus on, doing shows that are, new plays, and other people that just immediately start trying to do ACT and Berkeley Rep.
Right.
So what was were you just kind of far afield, whatever comes up, or anything in particular you were looking?
I was pretty much whatever comes up.
Mm-hmm.
I was always I did a stint, was sort of knocking on the SF Shakes door for a little while, and I did a bunch with Theatre First when it was Clive Schaefer, and he was doing plays that were written by non-American playwrights. So he did a bunch of English plays, but others too. I did a center rep. I had my center rep phase.
That's a long one.
Walnut Creek. Yeah. Trying to think. Yeah. I mean, I did do some. I've definitely done some school shows. I did some school shows. I did one weird Commedia dell'arte school show that was about like anger management. There's a lot of slapstick stuff. That was fun.
Now, I remember when you came in and you were a replacement actor for a Mime Troupe school tour show.
Right.
And I can't even remember how that happened. And I was directing.
I feel like my friend was in it.
Mm-hmm.
Was that? I feel like maybe my roommate at the time was in it, and when the other girl couldn't do it, she was like, "You should call Lizzie." Is that it? I feel like I got brought in by someone who was in the show.
Who was your roommate?
Alexandra.
Oh, yes.
Right. Okay.
Alexandra Matthews. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it was. Yeah, she was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember when
Did you know
you
that?
came in, and I don't know if I'd seen you in anything before. I feel like I'd run into you at some point or seen you somewhere along, and that you came in and were like, yeah, sure. And you did it, and what you brought to the part was so much fun. The other actor, she was fine, but she was really studying to be a clown.
Oh, yeah.
And so she was doing it in a particular way with her clown. But what you brought into it was this, and her clown was a little sardonic.
Uh-huh.
You brought in this absolute joy. I remember there's one part where you were being dressed up like a robot or something like that.
That's right.
And the look on your face was so happy. That's what it was like. The character was just so like, I'm enjoying this so much. And I was like, that's amazing. And you did the show for a little while, and then and I said it was just different, but it was so much fun.
Right. I remember that as being a lot of fun too. Even the rehearsals felt like fun. It was like playful and hilarious and like, yeah.
And so you got into my mind at that point, and I was like, I want to work with this person again.
Right.
As much as I can.
Yes.
And so you did that, but that was a while ago. That was like midnight.
A while ago. Yeah.
And so then you kept working around, and like you were saying, just working everywhere you could.
Yeah. And then I had kids, and so that kind of slowed me down a bit, but I wasn't willing to quit or to take a hiatus. I found like, because I had the two children pretty much one right after the other. And I love them, and I loved, the whole family thing, but I was very much struggling at that time with this, just like motherhood, and I'm going to be, now that means I need to be nice because I'm in control and I need to like set the rules, and so I'm now the authority figure, and I must make a beautiful home. And Pietro pretty soon after we got into it was doing his PhD, so he was like, don't talk to me, I'm trying to do a PhD. And so I was like trying to be mom, and so rehearsals for me were just life-saving because I could go and be bad, and I could go and or do whatever, I could play, and it wasn't about my relationship to anybody and taking care of people. And so I found like I actually needed to keep acting. I know a lot of women are like, ugh, let's clear the decks, give me some space. I can't take on another thing in addition. Whereas I was like, I need this for me. So
yeah, having that, the giving yourself the permission to be selfish,
right,
could be really, it's a lot of pressure when you have kids.
Yeah,
and it's like it's got to all be about them, and it's like, yeah, but I want to
sacrifice.
Yeah, it's as long as it becomes about sacrifice, then you end up, in my opinion, with people who are trying to guilt trip their kids later on.
I think that's how you get that.
Yeah, right.
That's how you get that. And that's not fair because like you're responsible for yourself. Like they're not responsible. You're responsible for making sure you take care of yourself so that you don't then take it out on them, that you never followed your dream or you never I think, Pietro was always saying like the kids need to see their mom has a life. They need to see that you're a full human being. I want Sophie in particular to see that you care about your work like that. And the only way to demonstrate that is for you to just keep working and we'll figure it out. And we made it work. We made it work like everybody does with, patchwork of babysitters and parents flying the parents in and
oh right. Now, did you ever take your kids to rehearsal?
Once or twice, but I hated it.
Really?
I've seen some of the conversation around this, and a lot of people are like, we have to have kids in the rehearsal room, it's got to be and I was just like, I couldn't do both jobs at once.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that like the days that I would have the kids in rehearsal, I'd look back over my blocking notes and I had no recollection of the rehearsal because I was always a little piece of me is like, what is going on over there? That he has to stop that now. Like, I couldn't just not see them. I couldn't multitask and do the work. So I think for me, the best was always when I remember this, actually, there was times, I forget which show it was, but the kids were young and I was in the Mime Troupe show and we had interns and the interns just took them out in the yard and they turned the sprinkler on and the kids ran around and then they went for a walk to that little top playground, a block away. And so I knew they were okay and they were close, but they weren't in the room with me because I just felt like it was like, for me, it's like someone constantly tapping on your shoulder, like, hey, mom. And you're like, I'm not mom right now. I'm evil scientist, like, so I always found it. I did a lot in my head of like, I'm not at home now. I'm at work now, and work means this. And I think I probably like stressed out about that a little too much. But I didn't know, especially other women, I didn't know people. I didn't really know Valina that well. I didn't know you guys that well that time, and Keiko. And I guess Jessa Moreno had a kid around that same time. Pretty much most of the people I knew who had kids who were still acting were men. And so I did a lot of like, nobody will know that I have children. When I show up to rehearsal, I'm here. Like, I'm not bringing my family life with me. We're not going to have long conversations. Unless someone's interested on break, I'll tell them about I'm not going to pretend I don't have kids, but like, you're
not fronting with that. You're not like,
no, I'm not like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. Somebody just didn't want to say goodbye to me today. Like, just like because I felt very much like everybody's got something. They've got a parent who's sick at home, or they've got like a husband who's depressive, or they're like, they have chronic fatigue, or like everybody's got something, and we just want to, when we get in the room, we want to make the world together and we want to work. And yeah, that's true, but there's probably and certainly is now a little bit more give, like more and more people are having kids, bringing them in, and it's fine. It's great.
Yeah, I think that it really does depend. I mean, it's a lot on the person and on the company. You know, that it was easier for Valina and I because Keiko had already had Julian like a year and a half earlier.
Right.
So we got to see how things can work and how things don't work. I remember one time Keiko said we were on stage and Julian, as a little baby, was like in front of, like in the front, in the park.
Right.
And she got on stage and he made a noise and she just started lactating. She said, like her whole brain just went, baby, it's baby time.
Yeah, right.
And I was on stage with her and I was looking at her and she was just like, It's like, and then she had to pull herself back out of that.
Yeah.
And then after that, she was like, Julian can't be in the crowd anymore, or has to be further away or something, because
further back.
Just the hormones would take over.
Oh my God. I was playing Cherubin in Marriage of Figaro, this like 16-year-old rock star boy that all the girls are crazy about. That was fun. I liked playing that role. And I came out for my first role, and Sophia was in the audience, my first scene, and she's like, Mama, that's Mama. There's Mama. I'm like, I'm a boy. Yeah. And then we did my scene. I went off. The next scene started. I wasn't in that scene. The people came on stage. She went, not Mama, not Mama.
Just to make it clear for the rest of the crowd.
That is not my mama.
None of these people are my mama. Check your programs.
Watch it if you want, but none of them are my mama.
Yeah, and when we were fortunate, that well, let's say we were fortunate, but with Valena, when we first had Zachary, since I was directing the show, Zachary could be in rehearsal, but he was with me.
Yeah, right.
So I'm directing Holding the Baby, which meant that he wasn't as freaked out.
Right. He wasn't like, I'm with this person who's not my person, and my mom is up there. I need to get, he was like, oh, it's with Dad. Yeah, that works. So
I think it made it easier for her. But that is one of those things where before we even thought about having Zachary, we were talking to another actor a woman who had a kid and then had to stop acting. And she just said, once you have kids, you got to drop out of theater.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. You can't do both. And so, how much did you feel at that point? And I mean, Pietro, interestingly, and having studied with the Mime Troupe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you guys, how did you meet Pietro?
I met him at church.
Oh, really? Right.
Yeah.
At that church over on Potrero?
Yeah, up on St. Gregory's, up on Potrero Hill. And when I met him, he had just come back from Blue Lake, and he had done a summer course in Commedia dell'arte, and he was getting ready to give up architecture and go into theater.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, what are you, crazy? Don't do that. Oh. So he had his own little show at the Fringe Festival here that was a little Commedia show in which they were like, you only have like a minute to set up your stage, so don't have a stage. And he was like, that's not what I will do. I shall from this, the first part of the play will be us building the stage. So he like incorporated, and a lot of how he figured out how to do it was from working with the troupe. So yeah.
So did you feel like, so how did he feel when you guys were like, we're going to have a kid? Did either of you feel any pressure to kind of like day job it at that point?
Well, he had a day job at that point. He was building low-income housing at Powell and Partners on 12th Street in the city, and so we had health insurance. Everything was great. The point at which shit kind of hit the fan was 2 weeks after Sophia was born, 9/11.
Oh.
And he started asking questions about what he was going to do to make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. And then we went to war in Afghanistan. And when sort of the first flush of, I mean, it's not like it's over, but like, when the bombs kind of stopped dropping quite so much, he went over there for a month, and he came back from that experience deciding that he wanted to go back into academia and he wanted to teach. So sort of around that time we had Gabriel, and so I don't remember us being like at any point like being like, maybe we shouldn't, it's going to be expensive. Might have been a good idea.
So he went back to school,
because
he wanted to teach planning.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, what is the future going to look like?
Right.
How can we make cities more functional?
Right.
For everyone.
For everybody. Yeah.
And so he's going to school, and you're acting whenever you can.
Right.
And you've got 2 little kids.
Yes.
That sounds difficult.
It was very difficult. We were quite broke, as I recall. It was stressful. It was like, I think he was very like I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but it's like, he's on a high wire careening off the edge of a cliff on a unicycle juggling, and he's like, how is this possibly going to work out okay? He's like in your truck with the brakes failed going down the hill. Like, yeah. So so I think that's how he felt, was just like, this is crazy, but we kind of got ourselves into it. And and I did a lot of trying to hold everything together for everybody, which was not fun, and you can't do that. It wasn't good. I didn't succeed. And
but apparently you did. I mean,
ultimately, like,
you did.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so having to balance that and doing shows when you can. Now, I do have one question.
Yes.
This might be an awkward question.
You only have one question.
I only have one, yeah. Did you ever feel like having an accent was getting in the way of anything in terms of getting cast?
Yes, I did sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I used to.
I mean, not that you can't overcome the accent, because you've done Mime Troupe shows without the accent.
Right.
But just in terms of, it's more about the perception that people would have.
I worried about that. I have worried about that on and off. I did used to, when I'd do general auditions, I'd go in and I'd do my American one first. I'd introduce myself in an American accent, and I would do my American one first, and then I'd do the English one, and I'd say thank you, goodbye in an English accent. And if I would clarify as needed if they wanted that. Mm-hmm. I got a couple of, I think, like that Topographical Eden, that was an American accent show. And so I feel like I got a good couple of shows in early that were Americans, so it became clear I could do that. Mm-hmm. But there are times where I've been like, why didn't they call me in for that? Is it just because they think I'm English and I can't, there are times when in the weeds of the whole, why didn't they call me in for that kind of nightmare, late night stress.
There's always a reason.
There's always
it's like,
something.
oh, I'm too classy. Oh, I'm too working class. Oh, I'm too this. Oh, I'm too that. And it's really normally that they just have a particular thing in mind.
Right.
Well,
they
an inch too tall.
I don't know.
Yeah. So when you came back, and I'm trying to remember the show that you came back to the Mime Troupe, which one? Oh, you came in as a replacement actor?
So that was the first thing I did was Red State.
Oh, that's right. Yes, Red State.
Red State. Yeah. And that was like, I ran into you at opening night somewhere, and you were like, and you said something that sounded like we'd already had a long conversation. You were like, so yeah, I mean, there are some spots left in our auditions tomorrow. I was like, oh, okay. And so I came in and I had to, it was like, bring in some sheet music and a song. And I was like, oh, fuck, I don't sing. I don't have a song. And I looked at, I had song books and I was like, sheet music, what? And they were all like songs I kind of knew, but didn't know. I was like, the only one I really knew the tune for was Feed the Birds from Mary Poppins. So I brought that in. And that was a wild audition, because I was very nervous. Because singing somehow, I don't know, what is it? I can be nervous and do a lot of stuff in terms of auditions, but singing, man, I'm getting better at it. I'm getting more practice. But that was the one where you were like, I know you well enough that I can say this. You ought to be able to sing better than that. And so then you were like, you're like, okay, now you're a bird lady. She's old and she's angry and she's violently protective of these birds, and you're not singing these, so you're shouting at passers-by, they need to feed these birds or they're gonna die, and meanwhile you're picking up trash on the streets because you're protecting the environment of these birds. So, and then you just looked around and you were like, well, let's just grab some stuff, and you're like, here's a shopping trolley, here's a bunch of screwed up paper, and you're like, you set this in, you're like, okay, go. And it was so much fun. I had so much more fun, and you were like, that's great. I remember
That was
talking
fun.
to Pat about it later after, because you were like, we'd love to hire you. And Pat saying to Pat, like, yeah, that was kind of a miraculous thing considering I bombed so badly in that audition. He was like, what are you talking about? That was a great audition. You did a terrific audition. I was like,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, you really can never tell.
You just can't. Yeah.
That's like when we do auditions, it's like, at least when I'm running them, that it's always like there's the audition the person does that they intended to do.
Yeah.
And then there's the audition we want to see.
Right.
Which is to give them a bunch of notes and to really kind of relax them.
Right.
Because it's so hard to audition.
Ugh.
It is so like everything's coming down to these 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And you want to just tell the person, I would love to be able to start the audition by having a massage room.
Right. Oh
okay,
my God.
Before you go in, you go to the massage room and just get relaxed and then come in because we want you to be great.
Yeah.
When you audition.
Right.
We want you to answer all of our problems.
Right.
And so that was why it's weird when you were saying, I remember saying that to you, saying, I know, and I was like thinking, how well did I know Lizzie at that point? I think I didn't really know you that well, but.
Well, when you said that, I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So, I mean, we must have done something else.
Something, and we ran into each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then now being able to do a full summer with the Mime Troupe. Right. Of Red State, which that was a lot of fun. I really liked that show.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we went to Denver. We went to we heard a little bit of Barack Obama giving his keynote speech, like as we were getting on the plane to leave Denver. Remember, for the Democratic Convention?
Right.
Wow.
I didn't go with you guys to Denver.
Oh, you weren't there.
No, I could not go. I was trying to put together a whole tour for you guys, but it fell through just because. But when playing that thing, I was already in another show. I was starting rehearsal.
Okay,
right. I couldn't go with you to Denver.
So you wrote, directed, but then you weren't in it. That's right.
That's right. That was that show because we had so many people who were not collective members.
Right.
There
was 6 of us.
Right, because Valina was in the show, and Lisa was in the show.
That's right.
I think were those the only 2 collective members?
And it was me, Bob, Adrian, and Noah.
And Noah, right.
Right.
So it was 2 collective members in the show, 4 non, which was a big deal at the time for us. But it was like, well, we want to bring in new people. Mm-hmm. And you guys all were, you were the town. I was like, these are the people I want to write for. Right. That was a lot of fun.
It was a very fun gig. Yeah.
So.
It was a tough pack, though.
It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough pack.
That's right. You played the silent.
Yes. I was the voting booth technician. They them there. And only said one word at the end. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember I kept having to, because I was writing the show, I'd written like part of it, and then I was trying to finish it, and that role wasn't in the original idea of it. That I had started to write it, and then that character actually had lines. When we first started rehearsals, that character still had some lines.
Right.
And then I just started cutting them.
That's right.
Like, it's so much more interesting to have this silent.
It went down to one word every, it was like one word sentences and then those went away.
Yeah, right. Even those, because it was like, we don't need them. It was such a beautiful, and it got more focus as a character, the tech, because of the only thing that they related to was the machine.
That's right. And then there was that, and then the tech's song.
Yeah. Which
was the tango with the machine. Yeah. That was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah. So, okay, so you do the Mime Troupe show, and so after that, I'm trying to remember how long was it after that before we said, hey, you should be in the collective.
Okay, I think what happened with that was there was some, like, Ellen kept bringing it up, And I was like, I don't think it's going to work because I think we're moving to Afghanistan.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right.
Because at that point, Pietro had been tapped to go and work with this minister of housing. And so we started packing up and putting our stuff in storage, and we were going to give it a year and see how it worked. The kids were really little at this point. And then it all fell through because the guy he was supposed to be working for got switched. And the new guy who was the minister of housing was an old warlord. And it was just like, oh, all bets are off. No, this isn't going to work. So, but in that's funny. Yeah, because during that time, I told a bunch of people, like, looks like I'm going to be out of town for a little while. And then we weren't out of town. And there was a lot of, like, nobody calling me. Like, you know, things went quiet for a little bit around there because we were still here, but everyone was like, didn't you go somewhere? And then also that was the period of my life where Pietro was going somewhere a lot. So Pietro he lived in Kabul for 7 months to do his field work for his PhD. And I was single momming it a bunch. So it was hard to put myself out there a lot. It was hard to take stuff on, doing rehearsals where 100% of my rehearsals needed childcare instead of, half of them. That was tricky. It was taxing, and I was
remember we kept trying. When we would have meetings, we were like, we should really try to work with Lizzie again. And I kept calling you before the summers come up, and you were like, I can't do it this year.
Right.
I can't do it this year because we're moving.
Right.
Because we're moving back east. Because he was applying for jobs back east to teach.
Yeah.
And so
there was
we're not going to be around.
A bunch of like uncertainty around our life of like, and I mean, to be honest, like technically that could still happen. Like he doesn't have a tenure track position right now. He doesn't have a full-time job. And, so, but I think at this point we're just like, fuck it, like we love the Bay Area. We're here. We have all this history here. Where would we move that would make our lives better than, even though the housing situation's tough and the economy's tough. But yeah, there was that patch of time where it was like, I never knew a champagne, what's it called? Is it Urbana Champagne or Champagne Urbana?
Champagne Urbana.
Right. Yeah. So there was a job there that he was interviewing for that was like, oh, maybe we're moving to the cornfields or like, so, yeah.
And that's how you ended up, because of that was one of the reasons you came back to do, whatchamacallit, Too Big to Fail. You came in as a replacement because you could.
Yes.
And it was like, well, I think I'm going to be around. I can come in for this little bit of time.
Right.
For like 2 weeks.
Right. Because it was
fun. You got to play a goat.
And then we did, I got to play a goat. And then we went to Miami. Remember?
Yeah, right.
And then we did the October tour to
Champagne Urbana.
Essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, right. We went off and did it there. And then, you were doing shows around. You started doing that thing in San Jose, was it? I think that was the next time you were doing Christmas Carol or something like that.
Yep. I did 2 years of Christmas Carol down in San Jose. I was supposed to do a third, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, but it was somewhere around there, and I was like, oh, right. Wanting to, I cast you in, whatchamacallit, the 2012 The Musical.
That's right.
Yeah, which was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, but weird show.
It was a weird show. It was, and the process was kind of weird because was that the one where the original idea turned out to be like completely different from, or is that a different one? Because there was one like the first week or something of rehearsal, it was like, don't really know what the show's gonna. Yeah, it was because Victor was teaching us tap dancing,
Oh yeah,
We
right.
had we had yoga, we had tap dancing, we were doing all this
Well,
stuff like.
normally when that stuff happens, it's normally that I know what I want to write, but it's like, and I was in the show,
Right.
but it's like I've started to work on it, but I don't have enough script.
Yeah.
And so frequently
This
what
case-
happens is first week of rehearsal is all of these other workshops, watch these movies, do
Right.
all of this stuff because I need to not be there because I'm just
Because
writing.
you're writing. But there was more of that than I think is usual on this one, because it was like you'd put out like for the NEA grant, you said it's going to be this, and then you were like, okay, it's going to be that, and they were like, no, you have to go back to your original plan or something, and you were like, ah.
Yeah.
And so we were like,
well, that's why the
know
show
what's
ended up
happening with
being
the
about.
theater company being censored and what they could write about.
Yeah, I was so proud of that. I was.
It was very cool.
Yeah. And also because all of the stuff that was in iambic pentameter was just took longer.
That's right.
You know,
Oh,
it was a little more. But yeah. So then that was when we really started going. We really want you in the collective now.
right.
And also we had done, you and Valina and I and a bunch of other cool people had done Carnival Around the Central Figure.
Around the central figure. Yeah. It's symmetry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Show that should have had. It was like we had an audience from the Edinburgh Fringe.
It was like we were at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, that show was so good, and it should have had much bigger
It should have been
crowds.
packed. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that was another one we were like seeing how much that it was like you were still like, I don't know if I'm going to be in the area.
Oh my God. It's been my life.
Well, at least you've been around now.
I
And
have been.
And you've worked with us a few more times.
Yep.
And hopefully you will be working with us again. Don't know about this summer.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. I'm supposed to be asking you about that. People want me to ask you about that.
I'm sure people do.
Yeah.
People, yeah, they ask all of us, and we have a meeting. We meet once a week, and we're talking about all of the stuff that's going on, and what are we going to do? How are we going to figure out? Are we going to do a virtual performance? Are we going to do just a performance in the studio? Are we going to do it as a radio play? Are we going to do things where everybody's kind of on a Zoom meeting? Because the question for a lot of the theaters now isn't just, are they going to do a show, but are the audiences going to show up?
Right.
I feel like for a Mime Troupe show, because it's going to be outdoors, it's going to be a lot easier for people to show up, but it's still not a guarantee in any way. And we've got to make a decision in the next next month or so, I think, about what we do and how, and if we're going to have something written, how.
Right.
Because writing a radio play is different from writing a Zoom play, which is different from writing a stage play.
Right.
I can't just write one and then change it.
Right. Oh, well, just
just add more scenery.
Right.
Yeah. So we will see. So we'll be in touch.
It's not a year that you really want to sit out, though, is it?
No, it's an election year, and it's super important.
Yeah.
But trying to figure it out. How can we get whatever the message of the show is to the audience in this particular year?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so
I don't know either, or I would tell you.
Yes, that would appreciate that if the idea occurs to you. Sure. Please drop me a note.
I'll let you know.
So is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I mean, I feel like I could just hang out, could go get my lunch, and we could just like hang out and talk all day.
Yeah, with talking to Keiko yesterday, we only got up to 1988.
Oh my God.
And it was an hour and a half. And we got up to 1988.
Yeah.
And then it was like, we're just going to have to do more of this later,
Right.
So maybe what we can do is find some time, because we've kind of skipped over some stuff as we were getting more into the Bay Area and the last 20 years.
Right.
We kind of started skipping things, and I'd like to hear more about that stuff.
Sure.
So maybe we'll just do another interview at some point. And it'll just be, Lizzie Calogero, the San Francisco years, or the Bay Area years.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so, that was fun.
Yes, it was.
And hopefully, like I said, we'll have a chance to talk again and learn more about you next time.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot. And
You're
see you
welcome.
next time.
It's good to see you, Michael.
Good to see you too.